welcome everybody to another Reno Ukefest 2024 Artist Spotlight interview. We're here with Mr. Jim DeVille, who is going to be answering some questions. Welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Danny, and inviting me to the best of the West, the Reno Uke Fest.
Why don't you just tell us about yourself?
I was born in a small logging and fishing. Oh, no, we don't want to go that far back. Well, let's talk about right now. I'm a contributing editor to Ukulele Magazine. I've been writing for the magazine for over 8 years, and I didn't get started in music until I was 35. Somebody gave me a banjo. 10 years of memorizing tablature proved to me that memorizing music and reading from a book is not the way to turn myself into a musician. And so in about 2000, I was gifted with a ukulele, and it changed everything. I wasn't competing with fast banjo players anymore. I was more studying chord progressions and this beautiful four-stringed instruments. Four fingers, four strings, four notes in a chord. It all made sense. And so I just started understanding chord progressions and listening to chord progressions on the ukulele, and that opened up the whole world of understanding how music works.
Excellent, Jim. Beautifully said. Well, what kinds of passions or projects are you currently working on?
Well, I just finished up a 9 week, 11 state, one Canadian province tour all the way across the United States, tent camping and relying on the hospitality of strangers.
Yeah.
But it was fabulous. I did about 35 workshops, and that's the beauty of it. Any state I went through, California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, it's just our tribe is huge, and that's the beauty of it. And what I find, because I am out there on the ground doing workshops with clubs all over the United States, Canada, and I see what people want. People want to play music together, but oftentimes that iPad or that book is a wall between us and really playing music.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes make the analogy, people say, well, which was better, the movie or the book? And I say, well, I don't know because I took the book to the movie. And you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to get anything out of the book or the movie if you're trying to do two things at once.
Oh.
And that's sort of my philosophy on playing music. It's fine to learn songs out of a book, but when you come to play with others, it's better to have the chord progression and the music in your head where you're hearing the music and you're experiencing the music instead of just speed dating through a bunch of tunes that you don't get to know.
I love it the way you say that.
Well, it's a passion because I'm a beginning musician myself. And I knew when I started at 35, I got a late start on it. And then when you start the ukulele at 45, hello, I got to figure this out. And that's where I just started tearing apart tunes and made a bunch of realizations that no one I'd ever heard anybody make before when it came to understanding lyrics, how they relate to chord progressions, and how that relates to the major scale. And once I opened up that can of worms, oh my goodness, the insights just started flowing, and I started hearing what was going on in the music. And that was the evolution of my emotional value of chords workshop, which is my signature workshop that I do all over the country now. And that's why we're offering it twice at the Reno Uke Fest. Because if you want to play music the way it's supposed to be played with other people without a book in front of you and hearing what's going on, I really implore you to take this class. It's fun, it's interactive. It's not me sitting there lecturing you about how music is supposed to sound. It's us playing and understanding how the scale works together.
Well, and okay, so let me add on to that. As somebody who took Jim's class, it must have been maybe back in 2011, 2012. And that was right at I was in the beginning of my career in music and understanding. And everyone kept saying, learn the circle of fifths in the music store I worked at. And I was like, how am I supposed to learn this? I would learn it little tiny bits at a time, and I didn't know why. Then I took Jim's class. The way the Jim presents it is with so much emotion. You use your body in your teaching. So when he's giving you an idea of like tension filled chord, he'll go tension and he'll go rest. So it's very theatrical, and totally made an imprint on my brain. And I suddenly had the same exact thing opening up the can of worms. Just, I went like that. And everything that I've done since then has built off of the lesson that I learned from you that day. Absolutely foundational to my personal career in music was understanding what you're teaching.
Well, you're starting to miss me up here a little
No,
bit now.
it's true.
Uh, you
Yeah.
know, music is about passion. There's basically two emotions in our lives, and we're going to be happy, we're going to be sad, we're going to be joyous, we're going to be heartbroken.
Yeah.
This is what music. It's a soundtrack for our lives, and to understand that emotion, well, that's what brings us together as human beings. And I have to give a shout out to my banjo days, the 10 years there. The one thing I really am thankful for is I've got to be mentored by the great legendary banjo player Bill Keith, and he was the one that opened up the circle of fifths to me. He had an organic understanding. He called it the roadmap to the musical universe. And it was everything. It was mathematics, it was architecture, it was the circle. And this cycling the circle workshop that I offer is a direct homage to what I began to learn with Bill Keith, and then what I've since learned in the last 15 or 20 years of teaching this material. It really, between those two workshops, I mean, you have a pretty good understanding
Yeah.
of where music is going to go.
Yeah. You've got to take, if not both of these workshops, you got to take one of these workshops. What I learned from you was that I can grab onto it with my emotions.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
whole point, is that when you have an emotional connection to something, you remember it much better. You intuitively feel it coming, or you crave it, or you sense it. That's how it happens with the music. You'll hear 2 5 1, you hear the two, you get that, you expect the five, there it is, you know what's coming next. You can feel the resolution before it even happens because you've tuned in emotionally to it.
Oh, yeah.
Emotional value is really this relationship with you and music, like never done before. It's really amazing. Yeah.
And the one thing about this understanding of the emotional value of chords and how it relates to songs is the biggest joy for me was my first career was as a disc jockey. I played music on the radio for a living, and I didn't know one note from another or how songs were created. But now, knowing what I know about the scale and about the emotional value of chords, I can look back on all the music I listened to in the late 60s, the 70s, 80s, and go, that's why I liked that, because it did this. And I don't like that because it did this. So I don't say I don't like that song. I will say I don't like that chord progression. I like that chord progression. So you start to shift from the generalization of songs to the specifics of chord progressions. And this relates to my other couple of workshops, which is like the Beatles, Fab Four, 62, 64. These guys, they weren't always like the Beatles. These were guys that just were liked Buddy Holly and liked Fats Domino and Little Richard and Chuck Berry, and they liked the three chord form and they liked the blues form, and they just started expanding through those 3 years. And you can hear the evolution through their chord progressions to where they're starting to stretch it out. And oh, maybe if we add this extended chord in this three chord pattern, it's going to sound a little different. They were musical pioneers in that respect, is that they took the music and the chord progressions to the next step. But this 62 to 65, 64 period is when they really start to understand chord progressions. And I think it'll enlighten you to hear some of the tricks that they used to get your ear completely tuned in to why the Beatles had such great tunes. And the last, I guess the other one is the strumming. And this is kind of a pet peeve for me too, is the memorization of strumming patterns. It's just too much. You've got the lyrics to remember, you've got the chord progression to remember, you've got, you know, hearing what you're doing, and to have somebody say, okay, the strumming pattern for this is down, down, up, up, down, down, slap your head twice, up, up, down, down, up, let's go. You can't remember that. So to have a basic understanding of just the basic strumming pattern, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and the downstrokes and the upstrokes. Completely different entities. Downs and ups are different. And if you can hear that difference, Simply eliminating one or two elements of that creates all the other strums. So you don't have to memorize complicated strumming patterns, and that's what we'll explore in strumming by ear.
I like the sound of that. Sounds like you're more focused on the negative space than the actual image of the
You know,
sound.
that as an artist, that is a great analogy
Yes.
uh, because uh, lately I've been really into my metronome to it. And there's a little section in the emotional value of chords about metronome usage, but in an organic sense. And at one point, I'm listening to the metronome at 60 beats a minute, which is just, 1,000. There's your thousands, there's your seconds going by. But if you really tune into the metronome and listen to that 60 beats a minute, there's that sound of no sound between those beats, that silence between the beats, that is time. That's not, that's the beats are not just the time. There's the time between the beats. And I was telling somebody about this the other day, and they said, well, especially to an Olympic swimmer, who loses by 0.37 0.37 one hundredths of a second. Yeah, there's time between those two beats.
And when people struggle with time, they usually come in too soon. And that's always the lesson is like, no, 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 you got to let the beat go by. There's space there before the next
Yeah,
sound.
yeah, and so everything that I've done in my uh, evolution was to teach me how to become a better musician, and all I want to do is share that. I didn't get into this ukulele game to perform or get up in front of people and show what, how fast I could play or whatever. I got into it to teach myself how music works, and now I'm just out there sharing the joy of what I've found. And so I hope a ton of people show up for this and let me lead them into this new approach of actually listening to what you're doing. And I love what you and Perry are doing with the Reno Fest because I do have a big history with it. I mean, I was there probably the first 5 years in a row when it was at the Nugget, and I haven't been back there for I don't know 3 or 4 or 5 years now. So I'm really looking forward to a little hometown reunion with you and I still remember your dad every year up there, and we go back quite a ways. And so this is going to be a nice reunion, and I can't wait to get there, Danny.
Can't wait for you too, Jim. Really looking forward to it. Where can they follow you on social? Because Jim was posting pictures of sunsets, mountains, things. He said this is the look of the day or the photo of the day. Really interesting and fun to follow him on his travels. Where can we find you?
Well, here's my Patreon page. It's called Pop Up Uke. We never move over this far to where it says puke. We have to watch that. I didn't realize that till much later, till I first did that. But it is Pop Up Uke, and what it is it's free to join, and then there's a couple of years of content of tearing apart songs and music theory and the Circle of Fifths. For $3 a month, you can get into that and get all that content. But my pop-up method now is 1 or 2 times a week. I give you a Zoom link. I pop in. We have a little short lesson, and we start to work on maybe a song. Like last night, we started working on the Calliope Rag, which is a simple finger picking tune. But it's anything's up for grabs, learning tunes, ear training, what have you. And that's the main one is my pop-up uke on Patreon. And my website is Play Ukulele by Ear, playukuleleByEar.com.
You're so good at this. Awesome, man. Well, I can advocate, by the way, for Patreon. That's one way that artists can share the things that they do in one space for people to go to, organized with a little community as well. And then they can make a living doing what they do. And that's
Oh yeah,
amazing thing. Three
yeah.
bucks.
Yeah, I mean, it saved a lot of us during the COVID. I did it for free for 2 years, 5 days a week, an hour a day for 2 years,
Yeah.
and before I turned it into a Patreon page. Um, but what I found, because I do travel a lot and go to a lot of festivals, that the people that I met in the little community that I built, much like the community you and Perry are building with the Starlight Ukes, is I see them now. I see these people at festivals, and we're like family, just like family. We got to know each other because we have the shared passion for music, And that's why the Reno Fest is so great. Is so many people just love it to be there in the a
Oh,
giant gathering of the tribe. So I can't wait to see. In fact, I'm going to give you a little imparting here. Uh, a little secret of our pop-up uke. We have a special salutation. Don't show anybody this, but we put our hand up in the pre-flourish position like this, and then on one we go 3, 4. We unfurl the flourish, and then our index finger strum. So this is our secret salutation. 3, 4. See you next time in Reno, Nevada. There. Oh, by the way, did you know, Danny, that Reno is so close to hell you can see sparks? It's true. And if you didn't get that joke, when you get to Reno,
gotta get to
you'll
Reno.
get it.
All right, Jim, you're such a delight. Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you at home, go check out the renouke.com website for tickets to the festival. Go check out Pop Up Uke on Patreon and play ukulele by ear.com for
All righty,
jams.
kids. See you next time.
Bye.